The process of transition between presidential administrations in the United States is a critical and highly complex undertaking, requiring meticulous planning, coordination, and execution. On January 17, 2017, during the White House press briefing, significant attention was given to the ongoing preparations and strategic measures involved in transferring power from the outgoing administration to the incoming administration. This moment in time was particularly important because transitions in the United States are unique in their scale, intensity, and potential impact on both domestic and international affairs. The briefing highlighted not only the logistical aspects of the transition, but also the broader implications of these plans on governance, policy continuity, and national stability. A presidential transition is not merely the handover of office, it represents a carefully orchestrated effort to maintain continuity of government operations while simultaneously preparing the new administration to implement its agenda from day one. At the core of the transition process are a series of coordinated steps designed to ensure that the incoming administration is fully equipped to assume the responsibilities of governing a nation of over 300 million people. These steps begin long before the inauguration itself, often overlapping with the concluding phase of the outgoing administration. The briefing emphasized that both administrations must work collaboratively to manage critical functions such as national security briefings, access to sensitive intelligence, and continuity planning for essential federal services. This requires an extraordinary level of organization, as dozens of agencies, departments, and offices are involved, each with its own internal systems, priorities, and challenges. The press briefing underscored the complexity of integrating these various components into a cohesive transition plan that safeguards the interests of the country while enabling the incoming leadership to operate effectively from the outset. One of the primary focuses during the briefing was on staffing appointments, which are central to any transition. The incoming administration must identify, vet, and confirm hundreds of key positions, from cabinet-level roles to senior advisory posts. Each appointment carries significant weight, as these individuals will shape policy, manage vast bureaucracies, and represent the administration on both domestic and international stages. The briefing highlighted that careful consideration was being given to selecting individuals with not only the requisite expertise, but also the ability to navigate the political, operational, and strategic demands of their respective offices. Moreover, the process of vetting candidates is both rigorous and time-sensitive, involving extensive background checks, security clearances, and ethical assessments to ensure compliance with legal and procedural standards. The briefing illuminated the intricate balance the incoming administration must achieve between expediency and thoroughness in staffing, as delays or missteps can hinder the implementation of the administration's priorities and affect public perception. The press briefing also emphasized the critical importance of coordination with existing government agencies. Transition teams must establish effective communication channels with agency leadership to understand ongoing programs, budgetary allocations, and operational challenges. This coordination is vital for several reasons. First, it ensures continuity of essential services and operations, preventing disruptions that could affect the economy, national security, or public welfare. Second, it allows the incoming administration to quickly assess areas where reform or strategic adjustments are needed. Third, it provides a framework for understanding the constraints and opportunities inherent in the federal bureaucracy, which is often highly complex and resistant to rapid change. The briefing detailed how transition teams were meeting regularly with agency officials, reviewing classified briefings, and examining detailed operational plans to ensure that the incoming administration could hit the ground running without unnecessary delays or confusion. Another aspect highlighted in the briefing was the emphasis on preparedness for day one priorities. The incoming administration had clearly defined objectives that it intended to pursue immediately upon taking office. These priorities often include executive orders, policy directives, and administrative changes that reflect the new leadership's agenda. The briefing explained that the transition team was meticulously planning the execution of these initiatives, taking into account legal, procedural, and logistical considerations. This requires anticipating potential obstacles, such as congressional opposition, public scrutiny, or legal challenges, and developing strategies to address them effectively. The briefing also underscored the significance of communicating these plans to the public in a manner that is transparent, coherent, and credible. Managing expectations is a key element of the transition process, as the first days of an administration often set the tone for its overall credibility and effectiveness. Historical comparisons were also drawn during the briefing, emphasizing that transitions have evolved significantly over time. Unlike earlier eras, modern transitions involve unprecedented levels of coordination, data management, and interagency collaboration. The briefing noted that past administrations had sometimes struggled with gaps in planning or communication, leading to delays or inefficiencies. Lessons learned from these experiences have shaped current transition practices, including the establishment of formal transition offices, standardized briefing protocols, and systematic tracking of personnel and policy readiness. The briefing illustrated that the incoming administration was actively leveraging these institutional lessons to enhance its ability to govern effectively from the outset, ensuring that the transition would be both orderly and strategically sound. The briefing also provided insight into the challenges inherent in balancing continuity with change. While the incoming administration must respect the institutional knowledge and ongoing operations of federal agencies, it also seeks to implement its own vision and priorities. This requires careful negotiation between preserving essential functions and introducing new policies or organizational structures. The briefing described how transition teams were engaging in detailed planning sessions to identify areas where immediate reform was feasible, where gradual implementation would be more effective, and where alignment with existing programs was necessary to maintain stability. This nuanced approach reflects an understanding that effective governance requires both respect for institutional processes and the courage to pursue meaningful change. Additionally, the briefing addressed the broader implications of transition planning for public confidence and international perception. A smooth and well-managed transition reassures citizens, markets, and international partners that the United States remains stable and predictable during periods of political change. Conversely, mismanagement or disorganization can create uncertainty, erode trust, and potentially impact economic and diplomatic relations. The briefing emphasized that the incoming administration was keenly aware of these stakes and was taking proactive steps to demonstrate competence, preparedness, and commitment to responsible governance. By outlining detailed transition plans and engaging transparently with the media, the administration sought to convey a message of stability, readiness, and continuity, reinforcing confidence both at home and abroad. Another significant element of the transition discussed during the briefing was the integration of technology and information management. Modern transitions rely heavily on secure digital communication, data transfer, and access to classified and unclassified information. The briefing highlighted efforts to ensure that the incoming administration had robust cybersecurity measures in place, enabling secure access to sensitive documents, operational databases, and intelligence briefings. This aspect of the transition is critical, as the effective use of technology allows leaders to make informed decisions quickly, coordinate with multiple agencies efficiently, and respond to emerging challenges without unnecessary delays. The briefing detailed how technical teams were working in tandem with policy and operational staff to create a secure, efficient, and reliable technological infrastructure for the incoming administration. Finally, the briefing underscored the human dimension of the transition process. Behind every plan, briefing, and strategic initiative are individuals working tirelessly to ensure a smooth handover of power. The briefing highlighted the dedication, expertise, and coordination required from both outgoing and incoming staff members, emphasizing the collaborative spirit necessary for success. These efforts are often underappreciated by the public, but are essential for maintaining the functioning of government, particularly during a period of significant political change. The briefing conveyed a sense of professionalism, urgency, and commitment that characterized the transition, reflecting the high stakes involved in preparing a new administration to assume leadership of the nation effectively. In conclusion, the White House press briefing on January 17, 2017, provided a comprehensive overview of the transition updates and incoming administration plans. The briefing highlighted the meticulous planning, coordination, and execution involved in transferring power from one administration to the next. Key aspects included staffing appointments, agency coordination, day one priorities, historical context, balancing continuity with change, public confidence, technological integration, and the human effort required for a successful transition. By emphasizing these elements, the briefing illustrated the complexity, importance, and strategic nature of the transition process, underscoring the dedication of all involved to ensure a smooth and effective handover of presidential responsibilities. The detailed discussion demonstrated not only the operational mechanics of a transition, but also its broader implications for governance, national stability, and public trust, offering insight into one of the most critical periods in American political life. The White House press briefing on January 17, 2017, provided a critical window into the incoming administration's anticipated policy priorities and the manner in which the media was engaging with those priorities through probing questions. Policy priorities during a presidential transition are inherently significant because they signal the administration's agenda, reflect its vision for governance, and establish the foundation for legislative, executive, and diplomatic actions. The briefing revealed the administration's approach to articulating these priorities and navigating the complex interplay between public communication, media scrutiny, and internal planning. Understanding these dynamics is essential, as the first weeks of a new administration often shape perceptions, set the tone for political engagement, and influence the trajectory of both domestic and international policies. A central aspect of the briefing was the delineation of the administration's policy agenda and the manner in which it intended to implement its priorities from the outset. Policy priorities are not merely abstract statements. They translate into actionable plans that encompass executive orders, administrative directives, legislative proposals, and regulatory initiatives. The briefing highlighted the administration's focus on several key areas, including economic growth, healthcare reform, national security, immigration, and trade policy. Each of these domains has deep and complex implications for the functioning of government and the lives of citizens. The press briefing provided clarity on how these priorities would be approached, emphasizing the need for coordination with existing agencies, alignment with legal frameworks, and responsiveness to public expectations. By articulating these priorities in a structured and strategic manner, the administration sought to convey both competence and purpose, reinforcing its readiness to govern effectively. Economic policy was a particularly prominent topic during the briefing, reflecting the administration's commitment to addressing pressing concerns related to jobs, taxation, regulatory reform, and infrastructure investment. The administration underscored its intention to stimulate economic growth through a combination of tax incentives, streamlined regulations, and targeted investment in infrastructure projects. The briefing detailed how these initiatives were designed to create employment opportunities, support domestic industries, and enhance the competitiveness of the United States in the global economy. The administration's approach also emphasized fiscal responsibility, balancing growth initiatives with budgetary considerations and long-term sustainability. The press briefing served as a platform to communicate these economic priorities to both the public and the media, highlighting the administration's understanding of the interconnectedness of economic policy, public confidence, and market stability. Healthcare reform was another critical area addressed in the briefing. The administration's priorities in this domain reflected a commitment to reshaping existing healthcare structures, addressing concerns related to access, affordability, and quality of care, and ensuring that regulatory frameworks were responsive to changing societal needs. The briefing outlined the administration's approach to modifying existing policies, identifying areas for reform, and collaborating with relevant stakeholders, including healthcare providers, insurers, and patient advocacy groups. The press briefing emphasized transparency and engagement, as the administration sought to explain the rationale behind policy decisions, address misconceptions, and provide a clear roadmap for implementation. This approach demonstrated an understanding of the complexity of healthcare policy, the need for careful planning, and the importance of effective communication in building public trust. National security was also a focal point of the press briefing, reflecting the administration's recognition of the evolving threats facing the United States, both domestically and internationally. The briefing highlighted the administration's plans to strengthen defense capabilities, enhance intelligence operations, and improve coordination among federal, state, and local agencies. Emphasis was placed on addressing emerging security challenges such as cyber threats, terrorism, and geopolitical instability, while maintaining adherence to legal and ethical standards. The briefing detailed the strategic priorities, operational plans, and interagency collaborations necessary to achieve these objectives, illustrating the administration's commitment to protecting national interests and maintaining public safety. The discussion also underscored the importance of clear messaging and media engagement, as the administration sought to reassure citizens and international partners of its readiness and strategic competence. Immigration policy received considerable attention during the briefing, reflecting its centrality in the administration's broader political agenda. The press briefing outlined the administration's priorities in balancing border security, legal immigration processes, and humanitarian considerations. The administration emphasized the importance of comprehensive planning, stakeholder engagement, and careful execution to ensure that immigration policies were effective, enforceable, and consistent with legal and ethical standards. The briefing also highlighted anticipated challenges such as navigating complex legal frameworks, addressing public concerns, and coordinating across multiple federal and state agencies. Through this discussion, the administration sought to demonstrate its commitment to principled data-informed decision-making while also preparing the public and the media for the implementation of new or revised policies. Trade and international economic relations were similarly addressed during the briefing, reflecting the administration's focus on protecting domestic industries, enhancing competitiveness, and negotiating favorable terms with international partners. The press briefing highlighted strategies for renegotiating trade agreements, enforcing existing trade regulations, and fostering relationships with global stakeholders. These efforts were presented as essential components of a broader economic policy designed to balance domestic growth with international cooperation. The briefing emphasized the need for careful analysis, strategic negotiation, and effective implementation, underscoring the administration's awareness of the complex interdependencies between domestic policy, international relations, and economic stability. The briefing also illustrated the dynamic relationship between policy priorities and media engagement. Members of the press play a critical role in scrutinizing policy statements, asking probing questions, and holding administrations accountable. The briefing revealed that media questions often focused on clarifying details, testing the consistency of policy positions, and challenging the administration to provide evidence-based reasoning. This interaction between the administration and the media serves multiple functions. It informs the public, tests the robustness of policy plans, and encourages transparency. The briefing highlighted the administration's strategy in responding to these inquiries, emphasizing clarity, factual accuracy, and responsiveness while managing the narrative and maintaining credibility. Media engagement is particularly crucial during the transition period as it shapes public perception, influences stakeholder expectations, and can affect the initial momentum of the administration's agenda. Another important theme of the briefing was the challenge of balancing ambition with practicality. While the incoming administration had articulated a clear vision and set of priorities, the briefing highlighted the importance of implementing these objectives in a manner that is both achievable and sustainable. This involves careful sequencing of initiatives, consideration of resource constraints, and strategic planning to anticipate obstacles. The administration emphasized a phased approach, prioritizing initiatives that could be executed effectively in the short term while laying the groundwork for longer-term policy goals. The briefing illustrated that effective governance requires not only visionary planning, but also disciplined execution, adaptability, and an understanding of the political, legal, and operational landscape. The briefing also shed light on the administration's approach to public engagement and communication. Effective policy implementation is closely tied to public understanding and support, and the briefing emphasized strategies for conveying complex policy decisions in accessible, relatable terms. This involves proactive outreach, clear messaging, and responsiveness to questions and concerns. The administration recognized that public perception can influence policy success, legislative cooperation, and international credibility. By addressing media questions transparently and thoroughly, the briefing demonstrated a commitment to cultivating an informed citizenry and fostering trust in government processes. Historical comparisons were woven into the briefing to contextualize the administration's policy priorities and media engagement strategies. Past transitions had demonstrated both successes and pitfalls in communicating priorities, implementing initiatives, and managing media relations. Lessons from prior administrations were cited as guiding principles for the current transition, illustrating the importance of strategic communication, policy clarity, and responsiveness to public and media scrutiny. The briefing underscored that successful policy implementation during a transition requires not only well-defined objectives, but also thoughtful engagement with both internal stakeholders and external audiences, including the press and the public. The briefing also emphasized the importance of interagency collaboration in translating policy priorities into actionable outcomes. Effective governance requires that multiple agencies and departments work in concert, aligning their operational plans, resource allocations, and strategic objectives. The briefing highlighted mechanisms for coordination, including task forces, working groups, and regular interagency meetings, designed to ensure that policy goals were pursued efficiently, consistently, and effectively. This collaborative approach was presented as essential for addressing complex, cross-cutting challenges such as national security, healthcare reform, and economic development, which require integrated solutions and comprehensive oversight. Finally, the briefing underscored the administration's commitment to accountability, transparency, and responsiveness in implementing its policy priorities. By engaging with the media in a structured, informative, and open manner, the administration sought to demonstrate that its decisions were grounded in careful analysis, legal and ethical considerations, and a commitment to public service. The briefing highlighted the iterative nature of policy implementation, in which feedback from stakeholders, media inquiries, and public response informs ongoing adjustments and refinements. This approach reflects a recognition that effective governance is dynamic, adaptive, and responsive, requiring constant assessment, communication, and strategic adjustment to achieve intended outcomes. In conclusion, the White House press briefing on January 17, 2017, provided an in-depth exploration of the incoming administration's policy priorities and its engagement with media questions. The briefing highlighted the administration's strategic approach to economic policy, healthcare reform, national security, immigration, trade, public communication, and interagency coordination. It demonstrated the careful balance between ambition and practicality, the importance of transparency and accountability, and the dynamic relationship between policy planning and media scrutiny. Through detailed discussion and responsive engagement, the briefing conveyed the administration's readiness to pursue its agenda while maintaining public trust, institutional integrity, and operational effectiveness. The press briefing offered a comprehensive view of the challenges, strategies, and imperatives involved in translating policy priorities into actionable governance, reflecting the critical importance of effective communication, strategic planning, and collaborative execution during a presidential transition.